Hi folks, Pat here. And today's rant is about forgetting Fast and Furious. Not that I think Fast and Furious should be forgotten, but unfortunately it seems to be that it is. And that's a crime. You know, for an administration that I just read recently is scandal-free, sure seems to have a lot of scandals. And the bad thing is when you have a scandal a day, yesterday's scandal tends to get shoved onto the back burner and forgotten about. And that's what is apparently happening with Fast and Furious. And that's a shame. It's a shame because Fast and Furious is an ongoing scandal. And it's not just the fact that Eric Holder should be fired, although he should, or the fact that the administration should be made to look bad, although they do. The important thing about Fast and Furious is that Brian Terry, a U.S. Border Patrol agent, on December 14th of 2010, gave his life for his country. And he gave his life for his country doing a job he believed in. Unfortunately, what Brian didn't know is there were forces in the U.S. government who were working against him, who were providing his enemy with weapons, with high-powered automatic weapons, that kind of tilted the balance of power in their favor. I'm not making this up, folks. The facts are readily available. So now we're trying to figure out who's culpable, who's responsible for this. And we're getting the typical Washington reaction, which is scurry around like rats, saying, that mean Fast and Furious? What's that? And it's a shame, and it's a crime. And, Frank Minotaur wrote an article for Forbes back in September that I personally considered the definitive article about Fast and Furious because, even though it's a little dated, being back in September, it provides an excellent timeline of what happened and the political reasons for it. Makes great reading. Again, it's September's issue of Forbes magazine. Now, one quote I wanted to read that he starts the article out with that makes a lot of sense is, he says, why a gun-running scandal codenamed Fast and Furious? A program run secretly by the U.S. government that sent thousands of firearms over an international border and directly into the hands of criminals hasn't been pursued by an army of reporters all trying to be the next Bob Woodward or Carl Bernstein is a story in itself. Well, that sure is true, but the thing is that, Watergate, which he was referring to with Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, Watergate was under a Republican administration. And all Republican administrations deserve scrutiny by the media. The Obama administration is a progressive/liberal/left-wing administration. And since the liberal tends to be typically the same political ilk, the administration can get away with pretty much anything it wants to, because they still have that love affair with the media. And that's unfortunate, but it's true. And, Frank also pointed out that where this whole thing started, where we got involved in all this, or where this administration got involved in all this, was President Obama made the comment that 90% of all the illegal weapons in Mexico came from the United States. Okay? Now, remember what I've been saying, if you've listened to me before, is that the worst thing about this administration is they make the facts fit the narrative rather than the opposite. So if the facts don't fit the narrative, they make up new facts. Well, you can't really make up a fact, but they discard those facts and just pull some new numbers out. God, Joe Biden just did that in Flint, and it's a common practice. So it turns out that 90% number was actually more like 17%. But since President Obama's reason for saying that number was to try and push for new gun control laws, which is something the liberals love, 17% wasn't such a good number, so he had to go with the 90%, which sounds a lot more impressive. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, and again, doesn't really describe what happened to Brian Terry. Now, let me tell you what, I don't think Brian Terry deserved to die. Don't know the guy, but everything I've read about him, he sounded like a patriot, like someone who loved his country and loved his job and believed he was doing the right thing. But what's made his death even worse, if possible, and even more tragic, is the handling of this whole thing since. At the funeral, at Brian's funeral, his father made the comment to Janet Napolitano that you got to wake up your man in the White House. Okay, which his father was understandably upset. To which Janet Napolitano took the opportunity to make a a campaign advertisement for President Obama saying how no president has done more and blah da da, which is exactly what the family wanted to hear, I'm sure. I don't think that Janet Napolitano was going to find any converts to Team Obama at this funeral. But again, that's how this administration acts. It's about them. It is about them. It's not about the fact that this poor guy died. It's about them. And then you've got Eric Holder sitting in this congressional meetings like, Fast and Furious. I think I may have heard of that last week or something, or words to that effect. Basically denying all knowledge. And that's disgusting because the family doesn't deserve that. They don't deserve the president. Every time the president's asked a question, he's like, well, I didn't know and Eric Holder didn't know. That's all I know is I didn't know. Well, that's nice. Because here we go. It's back to the fact that liberals want you to believe. They want you to believe that they are so brilliant. Only they can understand how raising another $1 trillion in taxes, and spending another $6 trillion is good for the economy. You're just not smart enough to understand that. But God, if you're a progressive liberal, you'd understand why that makes sense. But since you're just not as brilliant as them, you're kind of slow and they have to give it to you in small chunks. Just trust them. They know it's good for you. And at the same time, they want you to believe that they don't remember what they had for breakfast this morning. So they want to be so super smart and so super stupid at the same time. It's ridiculous. And that's what's turned Fast and Furious into something we have to remember every day until the people responsible for Fast and Furious are brought to justice, until the light is shined on this program. So don't forget about Fast and Furious, folks. And that's my rant for today. Sorry I went a little long. Bye now.